the movie wouldn't have been made without Charlton. I call him Chuck. You call him Chuck. Fun story about
that he would want to do Planet of the Apes.
I'm sorry, what?
He likes to wear, hardly any clothes. I know that. He likes to show off his
He'll fill out a Speedo like nobody.
Welcome, friends and fans, to a very special edition of GalaxyCon Live, where we, as always, are bringing the convention experience directly to you. Because today, we are going back to the Forbidden Zone and beyond with several amazingly talented guests from the classic Planet of the Apes franchise series. So without further ado, let's go to the future by way of the past with our first very special guest. He is a member of the Ape National Assembly, a Minister of Science, and Chief Defender of the Simian Faith. He is also the host of his YouTube series, Hanging with Dr. Z. Today, he joins us on GalaxyCon Live as our first celebrity guest host. Please welcome Dr. Z.
Hello, Pat. How are you, my love? So good to see you.
Good to see you, Doctor. How are you holding up?
I'm doing great. I started the day off early. I was at a Mahjong tournament at Bob Wagner's house, and I just shot over here. I'm polishing off one of these. But we're going to get through this, and it's going to be great. I'd like to thank all the kids who tuned in to the show, and it's like a convention without the smell of people enjoying themselves, which is the only thing it's missed. Otherwise, it's all the modern advantages of the convention experience.
Indeed. Well, as always, we at GalaxyCon Live are looking forward to the day when we can go back to the convention experience and we can hopefully host you on our physical stages and get you in front of your fans, because your YouTube series is going strong and you have quite a following.
We're very excited, and we feel that if people, look, I've in the late 60s, in addition to being in Planet of the Apes, I've had a bigger career than people realize. In the late 60s, I toured with the Jefferson Airplane. And if there's one thing I learned about touring with the Jefferson Airplane, it's that you should get tested for diseases and get vaccinated accordingly. And I suggest that everyone, as soon as you can take advantage of the vaccines, we can put this behind us and get back to business as usual.
Absolutely. Sounds very much, sir. Again, Dr. Z, absolutely delight to have you here today.
I regret. Hang on.
Oh, my only regret is that is writer, comedian, and actor Dana Gould couldn't join us, because I wanted to sing his praises for his adaptation of Rod Serling's original Planet of the Apes in a graphic novel format. I thought that was a wonderful job. So wherever he is, I raise my drink to him.
He bugs me. Go ahead.
Well, Dr. Z, the floor is absolutely yours. I am your assistant for today.
Well,
so
shall we introduce our panel?
That would be wonderful. At your leisure.
Well, let me get these. Sorry, I had to put on my cheaters. Men of a certain age. Well, our first guest needs no introduction. She is one of the original stars of the original Planet of the Apes, truly. She was also in Beneath the Planet of the Apes, Airport 1975, Cocoon, a tremendous actress and a fan favorite. Planet of the Apes would not be what it is without this young lady. Please welcome Nova herself. Ms. Linda Harrison is with us today.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction.
Thank you so much.
I was very fortunate. I was dating the head of the studio, and he said if the movie gets made, because of all the things that they had to use, and we didn't know if it would come off very well. He said, if we make the movie, you will play Nova. So it just came so easily.
Well, that's terrific. I have to ask you, what's cooking in the stove behind you?
What's cooking? Can you see that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Not much cooking goes on that stove.
I don't want to brag, but I make an apple brown Betty that would knock your socks off. But we'll talk about that after the show.
Fair.
Shall we continue with the introductions of our panel and spend some time with Linda? How do you want to do it? Do you want to bring everybody in?
It's up to your leisure, sir. I just want to say, Linda, on behalf of myself, again, I echo Dr. Z, a huge fan. We would not be here today. And in a perfect world, you would have continued to play Wonder Woman. But that's a topic for another day.
I had such a crush on little Linda when we did the film, but of course, as she said, she was with the head of the studio at the time, and I never acted on it because I wanted to come to work the next day. Let's bring the rest of our panel, and then we'll let the audience choose. But Linda, so lovely to see you again. What a delight.
Thank you.
Our next guest is also one of the original stars of the original film. Also, like Linda, appeared in Beneath as well. I believe he also appeared in Conquest, if I'm not mistaken. I wasn't in Conquest, but I'm not bitter. I don't, I was. That was 1972 when I was doing a lot of work on the Sonny and Cher show that year, so I couldn't make it down to Century City. But please welcome your friend and mine. Also, he was on Chips. Please welcome America's Next Door Neighbor, Lou Wagner.
Hi.
How are you, young fella?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for inviting me.
It's so great to see you, Lou. Now, Lou, how did you get into the film? You weren't also dating Dick Zanuck. I know it was the 60s, but come on.
No, I really wasn't, but thank God for Dick Zanuck, because this film wouldn't have been greenlit, without
Exactly.
Between Dick and Chuck, it was names.
All the studios turned it down, but Dick believed in it.
He was quite a brave man, because he was but many people don't know is he was running 20th Century Fox. His father was on the board of directors, and there must have been some sort of Shakespearean clash of wills.
It was his father groomed him for the part.
His father, of course, was Daryl Zanuck, the famous mogul of 20th Century Fox.
Yeah, he was very proud of Dick.
And indeed, and he was, and Daryl Zanuck was, of course, your father-in-law at one point.
Right.
That's good. Well, I hope that's good for you. I can't say, I don't know enough about him.
He was great. A rather quiet man, but they had a interesting relationship, Richard and his father, and it was nice to watch him. He would introduce him proudly to other people. This is my son, and they were always touching moments.
Oh, that's wonderful. There was a question I want to ask about this, but I want to move on and bring everybody else in. But I do want to ask Lou a quick question first, if I may. Now, Lou, did you just get a reading? You were an actor. I saw you on Dragnet the other night. I dropped my Manhattan. I had a long day. I hit the hot tub.
You saw me on where?
I'm in a terry cloth robe.
Oh, Dragnet.
I'm in a terry cloth robe. I kick on the TV. I see Dragnet's on. I was very good friends with Jack Webb. We wrote a book together about Jack's early days in radio called Profiles in Bourbon. You can get it.
What name was this film?
This was Dragnet. It was Lou on the Dragnet TV.
I don't remember. Sometimes
I did
they give me credits I've never been in,
Oh, indeed. But do you remember that, Louis?
I did 6 of them.
6 Planet of the Apes.
No, he did. Lou did 6 episodes of Dragnet.
Oh.
Including a seminal episode, the Big Goodbye, where you and a bunch of other beatnik hippie kids wanted to break away from the United States, and Harry Morgan and Jack Webb give that speech that's been shared a lot on YouTube about it's like, sure, things are hard now, and it's pure Jack Webb.
Oh, it's beautiful. Just you can smell the barley fermenting. Go ahead.
You know how you got that style, the Dragnet style?
Sure.
And that episode proved it perfectly. What we did, it was really interesting. We were not allowed to memorize. We had to read off of a teleprompter.
Oh.
And there were 2 teleprompters, one for Jack and one for his partner. And so we'd be looking back and forth and reading, and we had to when Jack would ask something, we'd have to go across to that teleprompter and answer on that, and that was the style.
Exactly.
I remember
You know?
that. Yeah.
But I couldn't be a bigger fan.
Was it very organic is the word for actors? I mean, did it seem to be real acting going back?
It took time. Yeah, I mean, we were learning on camera right at that moment. You know, if that was the first show you ever did, you were a little hesitant, but you got through it. Jack was very smart. We did that show in one day because of that.
Here's a fun story about Jack Webb. Fun story about Jack Webb, and I'll talk around it, and then we'll bring on our next guest. If you did the dishes for Jack after lunch, it was only glasses. Our next guest is a very talented actor. Not only did he play MacDonald in Battle for the Planet of the Apes, he is in one of my favorite movies, John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13, a cult favorite and a huge fan favorite. Please welcome the great Austin Stoker is with us today. Austin.
Hey.
Oh.
Here I am.
How are you?
Thank you.
Looking great.
So thank you so much for joining us. And where are you joining us from today? Are you in California or?
In California, yes.
It's
A monkey brother living in California.
Whenever people complain about California, I go, hey, you could live in America. You know, take what you have. Austin, how did now you were a big star? How did was Precinct 13 before Battle or after Battle?
It was after.
It was after
Battle.
Right after. And how did
Battle?
How did Battle for the Planet of the Apes come your way?
Beg your pardon? Say that again.
How did that movie come your way? Because you played the brother of Hari Rhodes' character from the previous movie. Is that is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
And was this just an agent call up? Did you have to audition, or they just offer you the part? You were big doings back then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had to audition, for the part, but they already knew they were going to hire me. So. They already decided they were going to hire me. But I auditioned, actually, just to make it real, so to speak.
Exactly, and most of the shooting was at Malibu Creek State Park. If is that correct at the time?
That is correct. That is correct.
At the time, it was the Fox backlot.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, here's a question, and this is a question for the Planet of the Apes fans that they'll understand.
Mm-hmm.
The Ape City in Battle for the Planet of the Apes was not the Ape City from Planet or Beneath. It was tree houses because it took place earlier in the timeline and they hadn't moved into basically bedrock. But the original city was still standing when you were there. Did you ever go over to see when you were shooting Battle, did you ever walk over and see the original Ape City? Because it's right over the hill.
That I don't remember doing that. No.
It's interesting if you ever get out there.
Mm-hmm.
The chunks of Ape City from where they demolished it, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a reason they went more the rugged style architect for that Malibu ranch where we shot so much, because the book had people had airplanes and
yes, it was like they lived in New York.
Yeah, but we cost so much money. And in the Fox, if you can bring in a movie under $6 million, you can shoot it. You don't need the approval of the board of directors.
That makes a lot of sense, because I would imagine a movie that was this inventive, the board of directors would have said no, thank you.
Yes,
because they were still coming off of Cleopatra and the financial issues.
There went the big Century City, where Century City is now. That was the backlot.
Right, exactly. And
And you had to sell it off.
they sold it off to real estate to keep the studio afloat, and that became a mall that they shot Conquest of the Planet of the Apes in. It all comes full circle.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring in the rest of our panel, and then and we'll go this. We'll turn this out. Battle for the Planet of the Apes, which is the final film, stars our next two performers. One who played young Cornelius, who is the grandson of Roddy McDowall's Cornelius, whose son was Caesar, also played by Roddy McDowall. Figure that out. Figure that out on paper. I don't have time. It sounds like something you'd hear in the Ozarks. I'm my own grandfather. But be that as it may, please welcome Bobby Porter, and also from Battle from the Planet of the Apes, Pat Cardi. Pat, you come on in too. Let's get everybody up. Let's get the party started.
Hi there.
Hello.
Nastarovia.
Your
Bobby,
cranberry.
It's cranberry juice, kid. It's grape juice plus. Bobby, let me ask you. Now you told me a story. We were in a scrimshaw class with Joey Heatherton, and you told me this story that you found out about Battle for the Planet of the Apes on the set of Conquest for the Planet of the Apes, but you weren't on the set in the movie. You were going to med school.
That's almost perfectly accurate. I was a pre-med student at the University of California. The Irvine campus had just been built. It was very modern, and they decided to shoot the fourth segment of Apes on our property. And I looked outside my organic chemistry window and saw a bunch of apes running around and said, "Oh, I got to check this out." And oddly enough, the film crew was exactly the same crew I had just worked with the previous summer on an entirely different film. So I was blessed.
Well, you were an actor, and then you decided you wanted to go into pre-med.
Well, actually, my career started out doing stunts. And my very first line I ever got paid to say was, if my father were a gorilla, we'd all be learning writing instead of writing. Now, try doing that under 3 inches of foam. We looped that line probably 60 times before we could get the difference between writing and writing. And that's my first professional line ever.
So it's so funny because I used to share a condo in Venice with Dennis Hopper, and he was an actor and an amateur chemist.
There were a few of us like that, yes.
True story. True story. But so you were on the set of Conquest, and then you sort of wandered out, saw the film crew, and thought, I want to get in on this.
I had lunch with the director, and literally 7 or 8 months later, I'm in his office, and he said, "Oh, I remember you." And they had to keep the film under budget, so they hired me.
Pat, how did you get it? How did you become? Who were you in Battle, and how did you get involved in that?
In Battle for the Planet of the Apes, my title was Young Chimp. That's what it was in the credits. A few months before Battle for the Planet of the Apes came up, Austin and I were in another picture, Horror High, together. We both.
How would I pronounce that? Horror High.
Horror High, which was also, I think,
Don't
a lot
of people think it's something else. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was also known as Twisted Brain. Yeah, on TV they played it as Twisted Brain, and Austin and I.
Did you ever sing it? Young Chimp, get out of my mind. Or it was Young Girl. Sorry, go ahead.
In any case, after that wrapped, I heard that they were casting Battle for the Planet of the Apes. And I went to the casting agent, who was a friend of mine, and I said, "Can you get me on the set? I just want to hang out. I think it's fantastic. I'm a big Planet of the Apes fan." And he said, "Oh, well, fine. We'll put you in a chimpanzee outfit." And he put me on the show for a month. I think I was in 2 scenes in the whole film, but I had a great time, hanging with Austin. I think I surprised Austin because we were actually in a scene together. We were working on a scene together, and I said, "Austin, how are you?" And he looked at me and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, this is Pat Cardi. he goes, "Oh, son of a gun, you can't be Pat Cardi." Anyway, it was very cool to work with him and Roddy and Paul Williams. Paul Williams and I became friends on that film. It was a great experience.
How many, Roddy McDowall, how many Planet of the Apes films did he do?
Roddy did 4 of the 5. He wasn't in Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
That's right. He went and directed.
He was directing a movie.
And he wished that he had.
Yeah, it's called Tam Lin, I believe.
I don't know what happened to it.
But I wanted to ask, there's a question I want to ask Linda and Lou this. Tell me a little about Arthur Jacobs, because he was really the beginning of this entire project. An incredibly driven, wouldn't take no for an answer sort of producer. Tell me a little about, I call him Artie, but tell me about Arthur Jacobs, Linda.
Well, you said it all, but what he had was a tournament of paddle tennis, and all these actors and notables would have, one team and the other team. And I remember him playing with O.J. Simpson. And so that
could go wrong.
I think there's a picture of Dick and O.J. And they entertained a lot. He was a showman like nobody else. He would not take no. He kept on and on. And he unfortunately died at a very young age, in his 40s.
And back then people would smoke a carton of cigarettes before lunch. And it was just everybody. You see the films, the behind the scene footage of everybody on the set, everybody smoking like chimneys. And it's hard enough to breathe in that getup for the non-ape actors, or as I call it, they're in ape face, which I don't appreciate, but that's me. It must be incredibly taxing on the system. Lou, did you have any dealings with Arthur Jacobs?
No, not really. I just knew that before he got into producing, he was a very, very famous
publicist.
Right?
Yeah,
So he had
Marilyn Monroe, I believe.
Yeah, he had major stars and stuff, and everybody turned him down for this show, except for Chuck.
Right.
And that was the beginning. And like Linda said, he never gave up. Everybody turned him down in town, and he just kept going and going because he really believed in it.
And you say something that deserves to be said, is that the movie wouldn't have been made without Charlton. I call him Chuck. You call him Chuck. Fun story about
that he would want to do Planet of the Apes.
I'm sorry. What?
He likes to wear, hardly any clothes. I know that. He likes to show off his stuff.
He'll fill out a Speedo like nobody.
He was something. I mean, he was like a big star. Someone told me that he was like bigger than life. His heart.
Well, you knew him, so you tell us. He seemed larger than life.
Yeah.
But if he hadn't have committed to the project, it wouldn't have gotten made. So he saw, because I can totally see how you could be in the middle of a scene of, I think of the first scene when Cornelius and Zira and Taylor are in Cornelius and Zira's house, and they've discovered that he can write, and they're it's the first long dialogue scene of the film with him in it. And I can see how someone might think, what if this doesn't work? And so you have to give him credit for knowing that it would work and for committing to it.
Exactly. It was a gamble.
Yeah.
And they were making it purely for entertainment, and it turned out to be a very controversial film. I mean, didn't say we did it for entertainment, and he never expected this longevity. And he was fortunate when Tim Burton wanted to make it, and there was all these different high-profile directors, and he came on, And Dick really wanted to produce it, but they hadn't picked the producer. Then finally they picked him, and which was wonderful because he ended up late in his life being the sole producer of Tim Burton.
That's true.
And he really needed that.
Films together, I believe.
Yes.
That's true. Let me ask you, and I do want to ask Austin one more question, but I do have to ask this question. And Linda, you may not know the answer, but while I have you here, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, this is what I was told. The original ending of the film was not that the Earth got destroyed, because you have to admit it's kind of a downer. It's like everyone's dead. Thanks for coming. And there
Heston did not want to do the sequel.
That's true.
And Dick was such a good friend. He, gave him so much for a one-day shot. That's all it took. And now later he said, it was one of his top films that he ever did.
Well, the story that I heard was Charlton Heston said, "Let's blow up the Earth, and there won't be any more sequels."
Exactly.
And Dick said, "You can't do that. That's terrible." And then the board in New York took a vote, and he was replaced as head of the studio. And on his way out the door, he said, "You know what? Blow up the Earth. That sounds fine with me." Is that what happened?
Say that again. You gotta.
Hang on. It's my bookie.
Oh.
From what I heard, Charlton Heston suggested they blow up the Earth at the end of Beneath the Planet of the Apes. So the ending would be like the end of Bridge on the River Kwai.
Yeah, it's like it could never be made again. He perfectly hit the thing. And then Dick said, "You can't do that. That's bananas, no pun intended." Then the board in New York voted to replace Dick as head of the studio. And on his way out the door, Dick said, "You know what? Blow up the Earth. I think it's fine." That's what R.J. Wagner told me at Mahjong. I could be wrong.
Dr. Z, I've heard that story as well, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was the split you're talking about.
Yes.
We got in a financier to get our books all together and make some money. And he ended up firing Dick and David and myself and his father.
Yes.
At the meeting said, "You're fired." And it hurt him, obviously, but he put his energy into having a film and going to, I think, Warner Brothers. He had a friend that was head of the studio, and they got a producing job. But for 6 weeks, they had no idea. And then eventually they took Darryl down. They fired him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was originally Clyde in Every Which Way But Louv's, and I had words with Hal Needham because I didn't like the way he spoke to Tracy Scoggins, who I was dating at the time, and I ended up not doing that movie. But everybody goes. We all have careers. We all move on.
I would have loved to see Clint say "Right Turn, Clyde" to you, Dr. Z.
Boys and girls, I digress. I was the guy who threw that punch. True story.
I believe you.
True story.
Maybe it's Bobby I owe money to.
You pay $1.50. Yeah.
Austin, when people come up to you, because Assault on Precinct 13 is also such a cult. What is the thing that people 9 times out of 10 when they approach you? What is the one that they always tag you for?
Assault.
That
was the main one. Yes.
And what year was that?
Oh my God.
74?
Yeah, I think it was 70.
Yeah.
74.
When the whole it's such an iconic piece of work.
The interesting thing was that the movie was not really written in any form. We had to create it.
I understand.
It was left to us to create it.
And then, and that was John Carpenter, I believe.
Yes.
And so when you don't have a script, what is he like? Okay,
he didn't know.
Have fun.
It was like he didn't know what to write. He let us create,
improvise.
Totally creative.
Yeah.
And where did you shoot that?
It was right here in LA.
Yeah, it was in LA. That's fantastic. It's so lovely to have you on. Now, Bobby, you said you through the do you how was it that you came to be in Every Which Way But Loose? And I didn't know hard feelings, but we will talk about it later in private.
I was talking to a few people the other day, and I realized I've played a primate 9 different times.
Wow.
9 different times, from 3 different characters on Planet of the Apes, the 2 on the TV series and the feature, Every Which Way But Loose, Any Which Way You Can, a film in England called Link with Lisa Shue, a film in Zimbabwe, which we talked about earlier today, with Jimmy Walker and a few other crazies, and Land of the Lost. I played a primate in that. So
that's great. Were you Charlie?
The second version of the Land of the Lost franchise. Yeah. So before I get booted off the island here, I wanted to pay a little tribute to just some of the amazing Apes fans that we have, because without the fans, we'd be just wasting our time right now. And there are literally hundreds and hundreds of people who have stuck with us for decades. And 3 of them, one of them is from the land of rock and roll lately, from New Zealand. It's our friend Dean Preston. Lou, I know you know Dean, and Dr. Z, I know you know that Dean Preston has been shaking and rattling the last few days. Everybody's good. He's writing a book with Erlyn Bartello, who was in all 5 Planet of the Apes movies as a background actor, but she was good enough that she was always in an appliance. So his book is coming out soon. So Dean, hi Dean. Richard Wolosky, who does Talking Apes, an amazing podcast. It keeps all the Apes fans in contact with each other. Even though we can't see each other face to face, we can listen to some really amazing stories there as well. And of course, the man who created this amazing documentary, that's Lou Wagner, as he's never looked better. Lou, honey, I heard that's only 10 minutes of makeup.
Which one is
very much. Up on the nose.
Lucius, 50 years older.
Yes, and that was done by the great Conlon family and Tommy and Barry Berman. If you haven't gotten this by now, get it. It's an amazing documentary. It's a great buddy story. And William Conlon is in the room. So, Will, love you, mean it. And that's it for the commercials. I'm done.
Oh, that was such a wonderful thing. There's so many amazing people and there is something about the series that galvanizes people that you never, you like it as a kid and it just never goes away. I know so many people that come up to me that they saw the film as a kid and it still means so much. I can only think of 2 series that really has created such a pop cultural impact, which is, of course, Planet of the Apes and the Star. Cannonball Run. That's what I meant. Cannonball Run.
Of course. Of course.
Lou,
I had so many makeup chairs where the makeup artist behind me said, "I'm here because of Planet of the Apes." Dozens of times I had makeup artists stand behind me going, "Oh my God, you're Cornelius. I'm here because of that franchise." And
I'm sure. Yes, so many people. Lou, did you, after Beneath the Planet of the Apes, you were also in Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, correct?
Yes.
And how did that come about? Because you weren't in Escape, but there's only 3 apes in Escape.
Yeah. So I was supposed to be Roddy's right-hand man, and the first day of shooting, right-hand ape, and the first day of shooting, the producer came up to me and said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well,
that's never a good conversation."
And he said, "Well, we had a meeting last night, and we cut your part out.
Oh,
So I was a star. I was starring in it, and they said, well, we'll give you a 3-week guarantee, but would you take the starring out of it? And I said, absolutely not. And so they said, well, there's nothing we can do about it. We'll give you 2 scenes. So I was a waiter, and I put the place on fire, and I stole some knives.
Yeah.
And for that, I got a better billing than I did in the first Planet.
As somebody who has worked for Dino De Laurentiis, as long as the check clears, as long as you take home the lira, that's all that really matters. Pat, do we have some questions that we want to get to? How do you want to run this?
We are apparently good. So, Doctor, if you want, let's go ahead and roll our first question.
Sure. You're going to have to help me out. I'm going to put on, but hang on a minute.
No problem. Our first one comes from Dylan, and they would like to know, what was your reaction when you first saw the finished movie? And I'll say this, your individual finished movie.
Who's that to?
That's to everyone.
Well, let's start with Linda.
I was all of 20 years old, and very young, and was happy to do the film, mostly because of Heston, because he was my idol. And but for years, I just went on with my life. I didn't go to conventions. I didn't know they were even existed. So I raised my children, and I had just later in my life realized that there were a lot of fans that I didn't know I had. So I feel very grateful.
Well, indeed. And Pat, did you see? You must have been a kid when the first one came out, correct?
Probably 15 or 16.
Did you see it in the theater, or did you see it on television?
I saw it in the theater about 5 times. I read the book before it was made into a movie. I mean, I couldn't wait for it. I was in love with the idea of doing this as a film, and I loved being in it when I was.
Where did you grow up, Pat?
I grew up in Los Angeles. I was a child actor. I'd done 100 parts before this.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
So, thank you.
Lou Wagner, what was your reaction when you first? Because you're a working actor. But it was the late '60s. You're out there on Sunset Strip. You're going to Pandora's Box, smoking jazz cigarettes. What was it like when you saw? What was it like when you first saw the movie?
Well, I first saw it on the lot with the other actors.
You didn't even pay.
Pardon?
So you didn't even pay.
Nope.
You didn't even pay.
Nope.
What?
You didn't even pay.
Oh no, I didn't have to pay.
Never spend your own money. First rule of show
So
business.
I walked in to the screening room behind Edward G. Robinson, who
originally
the screening
was
too.
play.
He was going to play Dr. Zaius, but he
Dr. Zaius,
Yeah.
but he had health issues.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I did.
I was thrilled. It was more than I could expect. I was thrilled with the screenplay because it was so articulate and it covered so many things that films in that day and now, still today, don't cover well. And I was just thrilled with the outcome.
Indeed, well, the screenplay was written by, the first draft was written by Rod Serling. There's a fun fact about Rod Serling. Nobody knows this. He also had a TV show called The Twilight Place. No, I'm sure I'm right. It's The Twilight Show. It's a fun fact about him nobody knows. He wrote that with Michael Wilson, co-wrote the script. Austin Stoker, how did you feel when someone asked, how did you feel when, I'm sorry, it was called The Twilight Zone Limits, it was called. Austin, how did you feel when you first saw Planet of the Apes? Did you
Well,
see it when it first came out?
Yes, I did.
And what did
And,
you think at the time?
sorry, what?
And what did you think at the time? It was a very very exciting time in our culture, 1968, 1969.
It certainly was. It was a very, very special time for me because I had just come in from a country that there was no acting. I was the only actor that came out of that country, which
And
was
what country?
Trinidad. And because
Yes.
was the most important thing in Trinidad at the time. It probably still is. I don't know. And Mardi Gras was or Carnival, as it was called.
Yes.
And it was all about dancing and singing. It was all music, and I was very much into that. And that is what brought me into this country.
I did not know that. That is fascinating.
Yeah, and getting into this play was something that I had not expected at all. It was completely new for me.
That must have been. Yeah, I'm envious of people who got to experience that period as adults. It must have been very exciting. And Bobby, you were a kid too when it came out, eh?
I was, and I took my mom and my little sister to the screening. Probably went to the same theater that Lou went to. I believe it was called the Zanuck Theater, appropriately so. And I remember my little sister sitting next to me in the scene where I was dying, and Roddy is crying over me and saying his goodbyes. And I looked over my shoulder, and my little sister is bawling her eyes out. And I said, I kind of like nudged her with my elbow, and I said, "Hey, I'm right here. I'm fine." And I thought, if we had done that good of a job that I brought an 8-year-old to tears, we must have done something right. And we knew the franchise was up and running. This was our 5th segment. And I was just really, really proud and humbled by having been a part of something that we're still talking about more than 50 years later. Go figure.
Indeed.
Amazing.
The film. What's amazing about the films is they are so popular. People love this, but they're also very dark. They're there's not one of the films ends with "and they lived happily ever after." The ending of Escape from the Planet of the Apes is mind-boggling. It's just mind-bogglingly depressing, but the movie is so wonderful. But they managed to pull it off, which is truly inspiring.
I offered a musical version called "Song of the Planet of the Apes," which had a happy ending. They didn't use.
I don't think they wanted an ending.
Sure. And then I was the very first ape you saw in the opening scene of the TV series. Different makeup, but dead, risen back, very, very prophetic.
That's the beauty of the films. Pat, where are we? Are we going to our private rooms, or are we going to bring somebody else in?
Somebody else in? I think. Well, it's up to you, Doctor. We could probably do one more quick one.
Yeah, let's just do one more question because people are waiting very patiently, and
absolutely. And I want to thank Dylan for that question. That was a fun one. And here's one from Andrew. Do any of you think that the movies would have had such the huge following that it has now?
No. Let's go round robin again. Start with Linda.
No,
Linda, especially because you were with Dick Zanuck at the time, it was such. Did they have a feeling this was going to be? It was either going to be huge or nothing.
That was either they'd be laughing at it or it'd be a great film.
Yeah.
When you get a hit, it's wonderful. They say out of all 20 movies Fox would make a year, some in South Africa, all different places. And if you got 7 hits, you were doing well.
Mm-hmm.
The ratio of having a hit show is really rare.
Right. Indeed. And Apes really helped keep the studio afloat financially because it was very close to the bone at that time.
Yeah.
Indeed. Lou, same thing. When you're making it, when you're out in Malibu on the beach, do you have an idea like, what am I doing? I better get back to Dragnet.
Well, first of all, when I read the script and saw who was going to be in it, all the wonderful actors, and the best cinematographer in town, Leon.
Camera, yes.
Yeah.
And music score.
Camroy was the best, and the best screenplay, the best director. I knew it was going to be great. So the first week of location shooting was the first week of the filming, and I remember the first day everyone was scared to death because it was the first showing of the Apes, let alone
Right.
So and 70 millimeter, and so they're watching the screening, and they came back the second day, and everyone was beaming. They knew that at least the makeup worked.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
Without Tommy Bergman and John
Nobody thought that we were going to have the power, the longevity that we do now.
Just look at who Heston and Kim Hunter, all these top actors, and they picked those because you had to be able to speak, and be strong. But they had Franklin Shafter as a producer, who later became the best director of Patton. They had Charlton Heston. They had a 5-time Emmy Award, Leon Shanroy. And the interesting thing to this film, Franklin Shafter never told, except for the cinematographer, Leon, where the next shot's going to be. So we never knew.
That's interesting.
Remember that, but I guess it gave an element of what's the word I want to say? An element of surprise, and because the assistant director was a good friend of Dick's, and he would say, I and Franklin and one more, Shamroy, only knew what was going to come next. And that was a quality of Franklin Shatner.
Without the makeup cast, without the crew that John Chambers and Tommy Bergman put together, this film would never have gotten off the ground. They were the most amazing makeup artists ever assembled on one film, ever.
And I think it was great that Dick Zanuck got an Academy Award for Best Makeup.
Yep.
He saw the man. He was incredible in what he did. And when Dick thinks something is right and a person deserves that, he will go after and get what he needs.
It's so very true. Pat, I'm gonna defer to you, young man. You've got the schedule. I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Oh, no, not at all. We are probably at time, so I will thank Andrew for that wonderful question. Dr. Z, I will thank you for being our guest host. I would thank our rest of our hosts here today. On behalf of myself, as a Planet of the Apes fan, I thank you all. I thank you for being a part of this ongoing franchise, which is beloved by our audience, beloved by myself, and beloved by many people here at GalaxyCon. I thank you all for your performances. I thank you all for your professionalism, and I thank you all for being a part of the Planet of the Apes.
I have to say one thing.
Dr. Z and the rest of our panelists, any final words for our audience before we go?
Bye, everybody. Love you.
Wear a mask.
Good point.
It is my absolute pleasure to serve you all again. Thank you again for joining us on the GalaxyCon virtual stage. Thank you to our audience for joining us. Thank you for your great questions. Hope to see you all again soon. Until then, bye-bye, everyone. Take care, and please keep washing those hands.